Hey everyone, I just wanted to take a few minutes to check in. I know that a lot of us have been tuning back into what's going on with the virus and the pandemic and what are the state of things. I mean, with after the vaccines became fully available and so highly effective, it has been so nice to be way less vigilant with our news, don't you think? And embracing just a sense of ease in life again. I know I took a vacation. I've heard about many of your vacations. It was so good to see you at the open house and just begin to feel that sense of exhaling, right? Finally. So I'm guessing that, like me, a lot of you haven't been tuning in to some of the news lately, which means that you might be relying on some outdated information about our current realities. And by outdated, I just mean like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, that's how fast information is shifting. For example, it is becoming increasingly clear that after about 6 months from your second vaccine shot, you are significantly less protected than you were originally. And because our community, were very early adopters in the vaccines, that means that a lot of our vaccines started to be less effective around July. When I realized this, it started to make sense that I had started to hear about a few breakthrough cases just in the last couple of weeks. Now, the good news is that testing has already started on a third dose booster shot. Yay. So I listened to Governor Polis on Monday. I went back and listened again to his press release and our press conference. And he talks about advocating the FDA for boosters. It's a common, the more you read, the more you realize this is a really common conversation that's happening right now. Because boosters don't just reset you to your level of protection at your second dose, they actually give you even more protection. So that's really good news. The less good news for the short term, however, is that if you are at about your 6 months or longer since your vaccine, you need to increase precautions. You are less protected. So you need to return to wearing your mask in all settings, avoid large public gatherings in person, and reduce other public interactions as much as possible, especially any ones that are indoors. Dr. Bob Wachter, he's the chair of the University of California at San Francisco's medical department. He recently tweeted that we are at one of the most confusing moments of the whole pandemic. Because even if you read every article and listen to every press conference and every podcast that you can find, the science is just not clear. And the virus is changing really rapidly. So it's all can just be very confusing and it's hard to know exactly what to do. I know you can just feel that sense of ease suddenly slipping away, right? I know, me too. Me too. It's like a ball instead in the pit of my stomach because we've tasted normal again, right? We don't even want to think about a return to something like what we've experienced, to increase precautions and unclear science once again. It makes us angry or anxious or just ignore it all and act like we're just not hearing it, right? It's important that we feel these reactions for the trauma response that they are. I mean, in other words, they aren't necessarily about the short-term shifts, the precautions that we're going to need to take up until boosters are available or until more folks get vaccinated. They are actually responses to the trauma and the terror that we experienced in 2020. The isolation, the extended uncertainty. I mean, how much anxiety we lived with without any sense of when or if vaccines would ever come. So we have this response whenever we do something that feels like what we were doing then, but is as if we are literally doing it again. But we aren't. We aren't. This is not the same as we were a year ago. The risk of hospitalization or death from COVID remains pretty low if you're vaccinated. We don't know, of course, if that will wane as time goes on as well, but for now it is holding. The vaccines work and they will keep being adjusted so that they can keep working, which means we are not at the same level of risk we were a year ago. And we know so much more about how to live than we did a year ago. We know how to move things online with relative ease. We know so much more about how to adapt, how to connect. We know that there are gifts in this way too. I mean, many of us, I know, have been thinking in terms of a line that we will cross where we are definitively post-pandemic, a clear after, when we can say we are closer to the before than the during. And in the line, this line has felt for the last couple months really close, like we could taste it. I feel like I've said it a couple times in church on Sundays even, that we are moving towards a post-pandemic time. But what I am realizing in the last couple of weeks, what I've been realizing is that the next new world may be less post anything and instead more fluid, more back and forth, more polyspatial. The next new world will have times where we will need to increase precautions and times where we can move about more freely. That is, we are not moving into a world that is all exactly as it was before the pandemic. We never were. We are not moving into a world that is just like it was before the pandemic. And we are not moving into a world that is exactly as it was in 2020. We are not. And we aren't even moving into a world that's a simple addition of these two worlds together. This world we're moving into remains emergent and evolving and requires our willingness to stay adaptive and creative, and where we learn to exhale even in the midst of these shifts. It requires that we learn to live with that ease even in the midst of these shifts. This exhale means freeing ourselves into the idea that increased precautions or rising virus numbers do not mean that we are simply back still in it. And it also doesn't mean, if you just ignore it, that we're out of it. It means acknowledging and then releasing the fear that comes up, that trauma response, that we are exactly where we were before the vaccines. And it also means grieving and releasing that wish that we still have in us to go back to normal, whatever that was. Exhaling means a radical acceptance of the here and now. Leveraging what we have learned over these last 18 months and remembering and leaning into our collective resilience, into our wisdom. We have so much wisdom among us now, and our joy, which is also and always still here among us. So that together we can leverage all these things and imagine and create that more fluid future that is emotionally and spiritually satisfying, while still being as physically safe as possible. Now, to help us in claiming this collective exhale for this moment, we're holding a 30-minute online space on August 11th, that's a Wednesday, at 7 p.m. We're going to invite in a guided meditation of release and reframing, where we can allow ourselves to fully release where we've been on this journey and make space for where we actually are now, like where we can teach our bodies to be here now, where we can breathe out so that we can breathe in here now, making space for the future that is fluid. Most of all, I think this time requires our patience and our faith. And by faith, I mean our trust that the truth continues to be revealed. Remember, this is one of our jagged rocks we talked about on Sunday, that this is our good news that can help us meet the challenges that we face. So we need to hold on to this, that truth continues to be revealed. We know so much more than we knew a year ago. We know more about the virus, and we know so much more about ourselves. And we will know so much more a year from now. So let us be here now, knowing that with gratitude, this is not the end of the story. Holding on also to that other jagged rock, that we are all in this together. I hope to see you on Wednesday, where we can guide ourselves through that collective exhale. Hang in there. I love you.